Hi, I'm Trey Smith. I'm the author of Thieves, One Dirty TV Pastor, and the Man Who Robbed Him. This is a true story. It's a safe robbery story of a television evangelist named Mike Murdock. Now, with these particular excerpts that I'm reading, I want to explain to you just a tad about Mike Murdock. When you begin Thieves, you have kind of this naive innocence, and as you enter the world of Mike Murdock, it becomes darker and darker. You make it to the safe robbery, and by the time that safe robbery finishes and I'm running from the TV pastor in Mexico, it turns into sheer, absolute chaos. But before the safe robbery, the interactions with Mike, they had these, what they were called inner circle meetings. These were on Thursday nights where his upper elites would get together and they would discuss, what they were going to do, very, private details about the ministry. Some of these could get pretty heated, like in this particular excerpt. It was my understanding, these men's thinking, Mike Murdock's thinking, was always very clinical. This was not spiritually motivated in any way, shape, or form, as best I could tell. And my understanding, the idea of the ministry was such that you didn't have oversight from Assemblies of God. They worked very hard to remove any type of oversights from these large church ministries, television ministries. The only real Satan was the IRS. Now, in terms of collecting money from people and how I understood that they felt about that, the idea was that you bring in new listeners with the idea that you're going to be blessed and all of this yay excitement about it. So they get you all motivated. God's going to make you a millionaire. It's just going to cost you, $58 as an entrance fee. But the clinical reasoning for this was that when that doesn't work out for the people, when you don't get your $1 million or your new Cadillac in the driveway, the average person, or this was the thinking, the average person or average Christian would be willing to endure and suffer through the most horrible of financial circumstances, basic poverty, as long as they felt like it was God continuing to test their faith. So you go from, and you can watch this on your TV screen, you can watch the mentality go from come in, you're going to be blessed, to it's all right, God is just testing you. And the average Christian will actually endure this for a great amount of time before they hit a breaking point. Now, of course, in walking through this with me, it became very dark, and ultimately, these are the kind of things that led to the safe robbery. One of the big terms Mike had was protege. This is a term that you see him use now. One of the reasons Jason and I were there, he sort of wanted to have these own seeds, another word he uses, that sprout. But they don't sprout good things, they sprout weeds. The idea is you've got these sort of wealthy people or the elites of ministry that are over those that are in poverty and sort of suction off of them. You can see some of these people who have become proteges, what I hear commonly termed as mini Murdocks, on your favorite Christian channel, Daystar, TBN, you name it. There are mini Murdocks out there on your screen. Pick one out, I'll give you 5 points. Anyhow, this is the excerpt that I'm reading you. This is a backroom meeting on a Thursday night. And sometimes they got heated just like this. You need to lighten up, Paul, Mike warned. I was just joking. I've been doing this a long time, and I assure you this isn't the first time some half-brained woman in the middle of her midlife crisis thought God told her to come give me every last thing she's got. And it's certainly a far cry from being my first marriage proposal. To be honest, he continued, I think it all went really well. The ushers did a great job of getting the money into our control quickly. Then we had her out of the building without any incident. Again, I think it went well. On top of that, this will probably end up being a really valuable life lesson for the lady. She has to realize that it is actually hard times that make us better people. So, Mike puffed his chest. In that sense, she's actually leaving my ministry with a life experience much more valuable than the bag of money she showed up here with. With a slight look of frustration and rubbing his brow, Paul exhaled, took off his glasses, and rubbed his eyes. Dr. Murdock, he spoke again in a weary tone, you pay me to advise you. I am trying to do my job. I am trying to advise you. This lady constitutes a significant threat to the very integrity of this ministry. I don't think you're truly grasping the reality of that. Paul, are we still talking about a crazy lady on the bench? That's right, Dr. Murdock. Paul raised his tone slightly. This is absolutely correct. We're talking about a crazy woman on a bench. A crazy woman with a sob story about how she lost everything she had at Mike Murdock Ministries. A crazy woman who started watching Wisdom Keys after her husband died. A crazy woman who heard your voice, Mike, he pointed at him, and thought God told her to sell her home, property, and lay the cash sum of everything she had at your feet. So, while we're all working very hard to fend off every gossip reporter and investigator from the IRS, this lady is sitting right out front the building with a big red flag on her chest screaming, "Find me, find me, find me." Now, he calmed his tone. Dr. Murdock, you're right. We've dealt with lots of problems like this one in the past. I've always been on your side. I have always been 100% for you and for this ministry. If this were in Atlanta, then I would say, let it slide. If it were in D.C., I'd say, let it slide. If this were in Denver, I would say, let it slide. But Dr. Murdock, it's not. If she were just another crazy person on a park bench in any other distant city, then everything would be just fine. I wouldn't care about the credibility of her crazy lady sob story. Because the problem isn't that she's got a sob story. She's got a sob story with your name on it, Mike. Worse still, she's sitting out front the building telling it to anyone who is willing to listen. Here's the headline. Television evangelist Mike Murdock takes money from marriage proposal and leaves woman homeless on the street corner. I would just really prefer not to have to face that as next week's Dallas-Fort Worth news topic. Okay, fine, Paul. Mike leaned back in his chair. You've got my attention. So what is it that you suggest? Dr. Murdock, the reality is, I think we should just take about 10 steps away from this one. We may need to just throw this fish back into the open pond. People who didn't have money or had given all their money were commonly referred to as throwaway people. Financially, the ministry is doing well this year, so her contribution really does little more than add one more pinch of padding to the cushion. For these reasons, my vote would simply be to give the woman her money back. What did you just say, Paul? He leaned forward with a venomous voice. I must have misheard you, Paul, because what I thought I heard you say was that we should do what again? Give money away? Surely that's not where we're at. He looked across every eye at the table. Tell me that is not actually what we're sitting in this room discussing right now. He crumpled a napkin with his fist. This ministry didn't get here by giving money away. God doesn't give refunds, and neither do I. Dr. Murdock was just presenting an option, that's all. He backed down. It's a lot of money. I certainly didn't mean to insinuate that it's not very valuable to this ministry. It's not about the money, Mike leaned forward. This is about the very principles upon the way I do business. We don't make exceptions just because what we do runs someone over once in a while. I don't care whether it's $5 or $5 million. Once that money hits those ushers' hands, it becomes my money. Let me repeat that just so there's not any confusion amongst any of you in this room. My money, he patted his chest. Now, just to make things nice and sparkling clear, he softened his tone, I'm not paying you or any one of you to merely find the problems. I pay you to fix them, don't I? So we have a woman in a tent that gave us her money and now she's broke. That really doesn't qualify as an earth-shaking crisis, gentlemen. This isn't rocket science. We simply need to marginalize her. Make what she's saying irrelevant. Okay, so that's what I'm going to stop with on that one. This lady, and we actually went, this lady had a very large impact on me. And you're getting closer to the safe robbery part of the book at that scene and other scenes that are, it gets rough, it gets rocky, and it's precision in those back rooms and the way that it's handled. Anyhow, I'm Trey Smith. I'm the author of Thieves. This is a true story of one dirty TV pastor and the man who robbed him. I am the man who robbed him, and I want to thank you for reading. This is what a copy of Thieves looks like when you purchase yours. God bless, and you have a fantastic day.